The letter was written in uneven, shaky handwriting, the kind only a child could make. It lay on top of a small wooden table in a dimly lit room, next to a box of broken crayons. Its words were simple, but they hit like a lightning strike. Dear Santa, please don't bring me toys this year. Just make my mommy stop crying. Miles away, in a warm mansion glowing with Christmas lights, a lonely billionaire read that letter, and something inside him broke open. 8-year-old Ian didn't know much about the world, but he knew two things very clearly. His father had left, and his mother cried only when she thought he was asleep. Their small apartment was drafty and cold, with walls that seemed to sigh each time the winter wind pushed against them. The kitchen smelled faintly of old tea and the leftover lentils Ian's mother, Mara, tried to stretch for 2 days. She worked long shifts at a garment shop, stitching dresses she could never afford. Every night, Ian would pretend to sleep early, then peek from under his blanket. He always saw the same thing. Mara sitting beside the small heater, shoulders shaking quietly as she covered her face with her scarf. He hated that scarf. It drowned her tears but didn't stop them. One evening, after school, Ian found his classmates writing letters to Santa. Their lists were long. Bicycles, remote control cars, new phones, soccer shoes. He sat silently, watching. Why aren't you writing? His teacher asked. Ian shrugged. Santa doesn't come to our building. She smiled softly. Just write your wish. You never know. He didn't want toys. He didn't want games. He wanted something no store sold. So he wrote, Santa, please make my mommy stop crying. He folded the letter, placed it in an envelope, and dropped it into the school's Santa mailbox, which the teacher would later send to a charity that collected letters. He thought that would be the end. But fate had other plans. In another part of the city, a world of chandeliers, heated floors, and rooms bigger than their entire apartment, billionaire Zion Mirza sat alone in his private office. People imagined he lived the perfect life. Money, power, a mansion decorated like a magazine cover. But wealth had never protected him from loneliness. After losing his own mother young and growing distant from everyone except his work, Zion believed he had no one left who truly cared. That night, a charity volunteer dropped a box of children's Santa letters on his desk. They wanted him to sponsor toys. He skimmed through colorful wishes and cheerful doodles, until he reached Ian's envelope. When he opened it, the room felt suddenly smaller. The shaky handwriting, the plea, the pain behind each word. Zion reread the letter 3 times. Why would a child ask Santa to stop his mother's tears? Something tugged at him, a feeling he hadn't known in years. He knew how it felt to see a parent cry when they thought no one was watching. He knew the helplessness, the fear, the heaviness. He couldn't ignore it. For the first time in years, Zion closed his laptop before midnight. He grabbed his coat, faced the winter cold, and told his driver, "Take me to this address. Right now." Back in the apartment, Mara wiped her eyes quickly as Ian entered the room. "Ami, I wrote a letter to Santa," he said with a shy smile. She forced a smile back. "What did you ask for?" "A surprise." She had no idea the biggest surprise of their lives was already heading toward their cracked building door. As they sat together on the threadbare rug, sharing a warm cup of tea, someone knocked. A knock loud enough to change everything. Mara frowned. They rarely had visitors. She opened the door slowly. Standing under the flickering hallway, Bulb was a tall man in a dark coat. Snow gathered on his shoulders, a softness in his eyes that didn't match his sharp suit. "Are you, Mara?" he asked gently. She nodded, confused. He held up a small letter. "I think your son wrote this." Her heart dropped. Ian peeked from behind her, eyes widening. And in that fragile, breathless moment, none of them knew how completely their worlds were about to intertwine. The dim hallway light flickered above them as if it, too, was holding its breath. Mara's eyes darted from the stranger's face to the folded letter in his hand. Ian clung to the edge of her shirt, sensing something unusual. Mara finally found her voice. I don't understand. Why do you have my son's letter? Zion softened his expression. He had practiced announcing big business deals, facing hundreds of cameras, even delivering speeches without fear, yet this moment made his throat tighten. How strange that a cramped hallway felt more intimidating than a boardroom. I received it through a charity, he explained. I read it, and I couldn't ignore it. Mara's cheeks flushed, half with embarrassment, half with vulnerability. You came all the way here, just because of a letter. Some letters, he said gently, deserve to be answered in person. Ian stepped forward uncertainly. Did Santa send you? Zion smiled. A real one, not the polite corporate kind. Something like that. They invited him in, though their apartment was small and cluttered. Mara nervously brushed crumbs off the rug, apologizing under her breath for the mess. Zion shook his head. It's perfect. Please don't worry. But he noticed everything. The patchy walls, the broken heater fan struggling to stay alive, the half-empty rice bag on the counter. Signs of survival, not comfort. He sat on the floor with them, declining the only chair. Ian watched him curiously, his eyes studying every detail, the expensive watch, the shiny shoes, the way he sat stiffly like he wasn't used to small spaces. A billionaire in their living room. It felt unreal. Zion cleared his throat and looked at Mara. I hope you don't mind me saying this, but your son cares for you deeply. Mara blinked hard. He's all I have, and she's all I have, Ian whispered, leaning against her arm. The words stung Zion more than he expected. Memories of his own mother flooded back. The soft lullabies, the warm hands, the nights she stayed up stitching clothes so he could attend a good school. Her strength, her exhaustion, her smile, fading slowly until the illness took her away. He pushed the memory down. I want to help, he said simply. Mara's back straightened. I'm not asking for charity. I know, he replied. But kindness is not charity. It's humanity. She hesitated. The world had not been kind to her. People had taken advantage of her softness. Her husband's abandonment had left her distrustful of promises. What kind of help? She asked carefully. Zion turned to Ian. What did you mean when you wrote this letter? Ian looked at his mother, nervous to say it aloud. She nodded gently. I don't want toys, he said. I just want my mommy to stop crying at night. Mara covered her mouth, tears instantly filling her eyes. I didn't know he saw. Zion felt something crack open inside him. He took a breath. I'd like to support you. Not just for one night, but in a way that gives you stability. What do you mean? She whispered. I run several companies, he said. One of them is starting a program to hire skilled workers and train new ones. You mentioned you stitch clothes. I want to offer you a job, a real one. Fair pay, good conditions, no exploitation. Mara stared at him, stunned. Why? Why would you do that for us? Because someone once changed my life with one act of kindness, he said. And I never got to repay them. Maybe this is my chance. The room fell silent. Ian's small hand tugged at Zion's sleeve. Will mommy be happy now? Zion felt the question settle heavily on his heart. Yes, he said softly. She will be. Zion stayed longer than he expected. They talked about everything. Her struggles, Ian's school, their dreams. There was a warmth in that room he had never felt in his mansion. Before leaving, he handed Mara his card. Come to my office tomorrow morning. Don't worry, I'll be waiting for you myself. Mara nodded shakily. Thank you, truly. As he stepped out into the cold night, Ian called after him. Sir, if you ever get lonely, you can come here. We don't have much, but mommy makes the best tea. Zion paused. Lonely. The word hit deeper than he expected. He turned, smiling. I'd like that. When he reached his car, he looked back at the small apartment window glowing warmly in the dark street. A rare feeling bloomed in his chest. Hope. And none of them knew that the kindness exchanged tonight would come full circle, in a way none of them could imagine. The next morning arrived with a kind of nervous excitement that Mara had not felt in years. She wore her cleanest scarf, tied neatly but shakily, and held Ian's hand tightly as they took the bus toward the shimmering glass building that housed Zion's company. Ian swung their hands as they walked. "Ami, do you think Santa sent that man?" Mara smiled softly. Sometimes Santa works through people. But in her heart, she worried. What if it had all been a misunderstanding? What if he didn't really mean what he said? Life had taught her that hope was fragile, a beautiful thing easily broken. Yet when they stepped inside the building, the receptionist stood up immediately. "You must be Mara," she said warmly. "Mr. Mirza asked me to bring you straight to him." Mara exchanged a surprised look with Ian. He had truly been waiting for them. Zion met them at the elevator, not in his usual stern business posture, but with an open, welcoming smile. "You made it," he said. "Come, let me show you something." He led them through the buzzing floors of the company until they reached a quieter workspace filled with sewing machines, fabric samples, and design sketches. Women worked at the tables, stitching with precision but also chatting comfortably. A supervisor greeted them with a friendly wave. "This," Zion explained, "is our new artisan unit. We train women from difficult circumstances and give them fair pay, safe hours, and support." He looked at Mara. "I want you to work here." Her throat tightened. "But I'm not educated. I've only stitched simple clothes." "You're skilled," he said. "That's enough. We will teach you the rest." Tears pricked her eyes, but this time, they weren't from sadness. Ian squeezed her arm proudly. Within weeks, Mara's life transformed. She learned new techniques, made close friends, and began earning enough to buy proper groceries and warm clothes for Ian. She no longer cried at night. Sometimes she cried in the morning, grateful tears that she didn't need to hide anymore. Every Friday, Zion visited the unit, not as a boss but as someone who genuinely wanted to understand their lives. He often joined Mara and Ian for tea afterward. A strange, unexpected bond formed between them, a quiet companionship built on respect, empathy, and shared wounds. Ian adored him, Mara trusted him, and Zion, for the first time since his childhood, he felt like he belonged somewhere. One cold evening, months after that first knock on their door, Mara invited Zion for dinner, not out of obligation, but out of gratitude. When he arrived, Ian ran to him excitedly. Sir, I made something for you." He handed over a folded piece of paper. Zion opened it carefully. Inside was a drawing. A small house with 3 stick figures standing in front of it. A boy, a woman, and a man. Above them, a simple sentence written in crayon. "Thank you for making my mommy smile." Zion's eyes stung. He had signed billion-dollar contracts without blinking. But this broke him in the gentlest way. He looked at Mara. She stood quietly, her eyes warm, her hands clasped nervously. "You didn't have to," he whispered, voice unsteady. "You didn't have to knock on our door," she replied softly. "But you did." They shared a quiet moment. Not romantic, not dramatic, simply 2 human beings recognizing the good they had brought into each other's lives. Months passed, and the artisan unit grew. More women joined, more families found stability, and Zion's company became known not just for profit but for purpose. It was Mara who suggested a new idea. "What if," she said during tea one day, "we create a program to help children write letters, not just to Santa, but to anyone who can make a difference? And we answer them, every single one." Zion's face lit up. "That is brilliant." And so it began, a simple kindness turning into a movement. Children who felt unseen finally had a voice. Mothers who felt hopeless found a path, and the boy who once asked Santa to stop his mother's tears became the symbol of the entire project. They called it the Iron Letters.